Howdy folks, and welcome back to Home with the Gnome, where I'm really starting to get back into this whole cooking thing. Actually, I've been getting back into this whole cooking thing. I never got out of this whole cooking thing, but I'm getting back into recording video with this whole cooking thing. Today I'm going to be doing an old favourite, chicken curry. Here are the ingredients. Now, the ingredients look a lot more complicated than the last dish I cooked, which was a very simple pasta, but this is still a very simple and cheap meal to cook. So we'll start off by taking a closer look at the ingredients. So, obviously, if we're going to be cooking a chicken curry, we're going to need chicken of some description. I tend to prefer using chicken thighs rather than chicken breasts for my curries. I just think they just works better when you fry them off. If you cut breast, and by all means do feel free to use chicken breast if that's what you've got and that's what you prefer. But I find that when you slice up a chicken breast and then fry it off in the pan with a curry paste, it just stays in solid lumps of chicken, and I like it to be a little flaky, almost like pulled chicken. For that, if I'm going to use breasts, I tend to boil them first and then shred them in a pan with a couple of forks to get that sort of flaky chicken that you associate with a chicken curry. But you don't need to do that with chicken thighs, which is why I prefer using thighs. So we're also going to be using oil. I have some chili infused oil here. I have some smoked paprika, some yogurt, a couple of red chilies, some coriander, which I believe you call cilantro in the rebellious former colonies, onion, garlic, 1 lemon, salt and pepper, and the mix of spices that I'm going to be using are buna, we're going to have some ginger, and we're going to have some garam masala. The mix of spices really isn't important. Well, it is, because it determines how the curry is going to taste, but you don't have to use these spices if you don't have them. Use whatever curry spices you've got. Turmeric, chili powder, whatever you've got. It will all work. Once again, you do you. Cook it according to your tastes. The first thing we're going to do is start prepping the curry paste. I'm going to start off by roughly chopping the chilies. Now, you don't have to add the chilies. This is entirely up to you. This is obviously going to make the curry hotter than normal, but what can I say? That's the way I like my curries. So a rough chop, because these are going to go into a blender in order to make the curry paste. Next, we're going to do a rough chop of the coriander or cilantro, depending on what side of the Atlantic you are. Stems and all, and again, this is a rough chop because this is all going to be going into the blender to make the curry paste, so it really doesn't matter how roughly you end up chopping this. That will be absolutely fine. Same deal with the onion. Again, doesn't really matter how roughly you chop the onion. All of this is going to go into the blender to make the curry paste, so you can chop it as roughly as you like. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention, we're going to need a can of tomatoes for this as well. I should have had that in the ingredients at the beginning. But you pretty much always, unless you're doing a butter curry, you pretty much always are going to need a can of tomatoes for any kind of curry. Next, the lemon. This is where I'm going to need the microplane, because I'm going to need the zest and the juice of 1 lemon. These are really good for things like grating up cinnamon, grating garlic. You can mince garlic with this very, very easily. It's also really good for removing the zest from citrus fruits, although I definitely require more practice at it. But once we scrape the zest off this lemon, we'll then go ahead and juice it, and we'll set both the zest and the juice aside. So there's the zest and the juice of 1 whole lemon. Now, if you had whole ginger at this point, this is where we'd use the microplane to grate the ginger right after you've done the zest. I do not have whole ginger, so I'm going to be using powdered ginger instead. And here's where we make our curry paste. You take all of the chopped vegetables, the coriander or cilantro, depending on which side of the Atlantic you live, along with the red chilies and the onions, and you just whack them all into your blending bowl. Ooh, missed a bit. That'll be fine. Add your lemon zest. Here's where you add your spice mix. So, smoked paprika, 1 extremely generous spoonful of smoked paprika. Garam masala, and again, I mean, these are just the spices that I'm using. You do you. generous helping of that. Let's get some ginger in there. This is going to be quite spicy. Again, do the spices to your tastes. If you do not like a particularly spicy curry, skip the ginger. The ginger is going to add quite a zing to it. And I'm also going to be adding, if I can figure out how to get the lid off, some Buna spices. So the thing about cooking a curry, it all depends on the spices that you add. And the proportion of spices that you add, and I'm going to need some help getting this lid off. The proportion of spices that you add and the type of spices that you add radically change the way the curry tastes. There we go. Oh, they smell good. So some Buna spices in there too. Add the lemon juice. This is going to make a very, very thick curry paste. This is where you add the oil. Now I am using chili infused olive oil. You absolutely don't have to use chili infused oil. You don't have to use oil infused with anything. Any kind of vegetable oil will do. It's important you don't put too much of this stuff in. 1.5 teaspoons at most. Remember, you're making a paste here, not a sauce. This is going to be very, very thick. Or at least it should be. Otherwise you've done it wrong. And then we pop that in the blender and we got a curry paste. So here are our chicken thighs. 4 chicken thighs, that's what I'm doing. Obviously you do you, cook however many you need, but 4 chicken thighs will feed me for 2 days. I'll have this tonight, I'll put half of it in the fridge, and I'll have it again tomorrow. We're going to add these chicken thighs into the freezer bag. Obviously the size of the freezer bag that you'll need will depend on how many chicken thighs you are cooking. And into the freezer bag, hopefully without spilling any of it, and this stuff smells great already, is our curry paste. Top tip, if you are doing your curry paste ingredients in a blender as I did, it can be very, very difficult to get out of the blender bowl. I added some of the chopped tomatoes in there just to make it a bit easier to actually blend it all up. That's enough for the freezer bag. I will get the rest out of there later and into the frying pan when I come to actually cook the chicken thighs with the remainder of that curry paste. Seal your freezer bag and massage all of that curry paste into your chicken thighs. And then you take that and you put it in the fridge for at least 20 minutes. Although you can leave it overnight if you wish, and it will taste better if you do, but 20 minutes is absolutely fine. It occurred to me, and the more alert amongst you may have already noticed, that I forgot to put the garlic in. But that's okay, because I needed some kind of plan to get the remainder of the curry paste out of the bottom of the blending bowl where it was wedged. And so I put the remainder of the chopped tomatoes in there, which you could just fry off in the pan, but I needed something with a fair amount of liquid in there in order to blend into the remainder of the curry paste so I could make sure that none of it went to waste. And I just put the garlic in at that point anyway. So yeah, not a complete disaster. I did manage to save it in time. How much garlic? However much garlic you like. Remember, you do you. Okay, the hard part is done, making the chicken curry paste. Now the easy part, actually cooking the chicken curry. So you're going to need ideally a stainless steel pan. I mean, it'll work with a non-stick pan, but stainless steel is better. And you want that pan absolutely ripping hot, because as soon as you put the chicken thighs in there, if it's not hot enough, they'll just stick to the bottom of the pan. How do you know if it's hot enough? Take a little bit of water. If you see that, water, there's a special name for the effect, but if the water does that, and yes, I realise I have burnt this pan in the past, that was a mistake, I left some oil burning for too long. But if you see that, you know that the pan is hot enough. And now we can add our chicken thighs, which have been marinated in the fridge for at least the last 20 minutes. As you can see, because the pan is hot, I can easily move these chicken thighs around. We're going to give them 2 minutes on each side. While you're browning off your chicken, now would be a good time to start your rice. The tricky part, although it's not that tricky with a curry, because if you find that the curry with the chicken is thickening up too quickly and it's going to be ready before the rice is, you can just add some water and that will take care of it, no problem. I, however, use a rice cooker because they're amazing. I actually started this about 15 minutes ago, and what this will do is I don't have to worry about timing the rice completion with the curry completion, because as soon as that's done, it'll go into keep warm mode, where it will actually keep the rice good, and it will cook it perfectly every time, and it will keep the rice good for at least a further 20 minutes. And it'll actually keep it going for up to 24 hours, although it won't be as good. It will still be fine. But with the rice cooker, I don't need to worry about the timing of the rice and the curry. They'll both be ready at the same time. That will just keep it warm, moist and fluffy until the curry's ready. Time to turn these over. And we have all kinds of lovely fond at the bottom of this pan, which we will deglaze, probably with just some water, once we add the remainder of the spice paste and marinade to it, along with the chopped tomatoes. So the chicken thighs have been going for about 2 minutes on each side. That's not enough to cook them. All we're doing is putting a sear on the chicken. Now we're going to add the remainder of, well, what was originally chicken curry spice. Chicken curry paste. Get it right, Jingles. But I've now blended up with the chopped tomatoes in order to get all of the remainder, and turn the heat down now by the way, all of the remainder of that spice paste into the dish. Turn the heat down, medium low. That is too thick, so we're going to need to add some water. Biggest mistake people make when they are doing a curry like this, I think I need to turn the heat down a little more, is adding oil. You've got more than enough oil with the tablespoon and a half that we put in to make the paste. You have more than enough oil in there. There's nothing worse than an oily curry. We're going to spread that around, deglaze the bottom of the pan, which needs heavily deglazing. There's all kinds of fond at the bottom here. Oop, a little bit of spillage there. And once the bottom of the pan's deglazed, that would be a good time, if you're going to cook your rice the old-fashioned way, to start cooking the rice. Because with the pan deglazed, I'm just going to put the lid on, turn the heat right down, and let it slow cook for another 20 minutes to half an hour. That'll cook the chicken through, and we'll basically be ready to go. Right, this has been cooking away for about 20 minutes, half an hour. My rice was ready 15 minutes ago, but the rice cooker's keeping it good. I don't know if you can see, I had a bit of a utensil malfunction when I took the lid off after it had been simmering and gave it a bit of a stir. I may have stirred it a little too vigorously. I've got curry sauce all over my stovetop, so I'm going to have some cleaning up to do afterwards. The chicken's basically cooked. I've added a little bit of water just to thin it out because it was starting to get a bit too thick. Don't forget to taste it, because it may need salt, it may need pepper. I'm going to go ahead and give it a go. Oh, that's good. Can definitely taste the coriander. Does need some salt though, so I'm going to put some salt in there. That ought to do.
Stir it in, let it go for another 10 minutes or so. The rice will still be good in the rice cooker. That will keep it. It's on keep warm mode, and it will be fantastic for at least 20 to 40 minutes after it's actually finished cooking. And it'll still be good for anything up to technically 24 hours afterwards. It's the beauty of using a rice cooker. Let's give that another taste. Oh yeah, yeah, that is good. Another 10 minutes or so, just let the salt work its way in. And that will be ready to serve.
And there it is, 2 chicken thighs on a bed of rice, generous helping of the curry sauce, topped with some yogurt and dressed and garnished with some of the cilantro this time, without the stems. Nice fluffy rice cooked in the rice cooker. It's chicken curry, what's not to like? And of course, with the 4 chicken thighs, 2 served now, the rest will go in the fridge and I'll just have it for dinner tomorrow, so that's enough to feed me for 2 days. Having some more of this, the rice is really good. Yeah. So yeah, chicken thigh curry, cheap, easy, more complicated to prepare than the pasta I did the other week, but not expensive. And the only really hard part is mixing up the curry paste. I mean, if you were to just go out and buy a jar of curry paste, then you could skip that part entirely. And the only thing that you really need to remember is to have a ripping hot pan for searing off the chicken thighs. Otherwise they just stick to the pan and you'll ruin the whole thing. But that's it. Very inexpensive, not that difficult to make. The difficult part is making the paste, and even that's not that difficult. If you don't have a blender, then you can just grind it and it will be just as good. So I'm going to tuck into this. This is going to be my dinner for tonight. I'm going to sit down in front of the TV and watch something, maybe a latest episode of The Boys, and enjoy my chicken curry. And I hope you enjoy yours too. As always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.